All right. Good morning, Kev.
Good morning, Jose. How are you doing today?
You got this new book coming out about one of my favorite animals, the grizzly bear. I mean, first of all, what's up with these grizzlies and polar bears mixing genome? Is that true or is that myth?
Yeah, the Pizzly, the polar bear grizzly. I believe it's true. There've been a few cases of that. So, it's happening to my knowledge, and they are big bears, but it doesn't really change things. So, with all bears, the best way to stay safe around them is really just to secure those attractants, and then carry bear spray, travel in a group, and make a lot of noise.
Now, a lot of this is due to they're losing their natural habitat. Who's losing it more, the polar bears or the grizzlies?
The grizzlies are, we think of them as ferocious carnivores, but they're actually opportunistic omnivores that eat a wide range of food and are primarily vegetarian. So the ecological flexibility of grizzly bears is huge, and they can really improvise to get food sources. And so polar bears are primarily carnivores, and I think they face the biggest problem with sea ice melting. They're not able to hunt in their normal way, and so they're sort of migrating into those towns and villages on the fringe looking for food, just because they can't typically walk across the ice like they normally could. So I think they face the biggest challenges right now.
But both need preservation and to be taken care of. I mean, how can people step up and help the grizzlies?
Sure. Basically, it's just knowing about the grizzly bear temperament and their needs. And so they only have a limited amount of time. They have to eat a year's worth of food in 6 months. And they like a lot of space. They like to be left alone, and they don't like surprises. So just knowing that and how you travel and recreate in bear country. And like I said, securing your food and your garbage is the biggest thing, because once a bear gets habituated to humans and begins to associate humans with food, then it begins to cause a lot of problems. There's just that idea that a fed bear is a dead bear, and eventually they'll have to be removed from the landscape.
Now, I'm from Connecticut, and I know several people who go out ski mobiling up into Canada and here in the Northeast. Are they going to run into grizzlies in this part of the country?
In northern Canada?
Oh, northern U.S., Northeast. Yeah.
No, they shouldn't. Yeah, typically the grizzlies are primarily out in the west, through the Arctic, down through Alaska and British Columbia. And then in the lower 48 states, they're isolated to Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. And then there's also going to be a reintroduction of grizzly bears to the North Cascades in Washington State, a little north of Seattle. But there's none in the Northeast, so this e-mobiler should be safe up there.
But I love going into up into Wyoming, and I've been camping out there along with the bison. I mean, those between bison and grizzly bears, those are two things you should try to avoid, I guess, and not take selfies with. I know people love to take selfies these days. How dangerous is it to take a selfie with a grizzly?
It's very dangerous. So I worked as a paramedic and park ranger at both Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and unfortunately, people will get as close as they can to grizzly bears and bison if you let them. My last summer working at Old Faithful, there was 5 bison goring. So there's something in the bison temperament that when a human turns their back on them to take a selfie, it wants to charge. So we try to prevent that through a lot of signage throughout the park and messaging to keep at least 50 yards between themselves and a bison, and at least 100 yards between themselves and a grizzly bear, just to keep that, that safe perimeter.
So what can people expect out of your book?
Yes, each chapter is a lens in which to view brown bears. So in one chapter, I spend the day with Doug and Lynn Seuss, who have trained grizzlies to act in Hollywood films alongside Anthony Hopkins and Robert Redford. In another chapter, I visit the Washington State Bear Center, where scientists think brown bear physiology can help treat the human afflictions of heart disease, diabetes, and kidney failure. Because bears put on all this weight, but they don't have any adverse health effects. And the narrative or the journey of the book is, grizzlies started appearing around my town of Jackson Hole, and we're seeing this now, that grizzly bear conservation is a modern success story. So they're pushing out beyond national parks like Yellowstone and Grand Teton and appearing in places they haven't been in hundreds of years. And so initially I was conflicted about having bears on the landscape, and I didn't know if I was a bear person. So I embarked on this journey just to learn everything I could. And ultimately, at the end of the book, I decide I am a bear person, and I've become an advocate of respect for them and their place in the ecosystem. But each chapter is sort of a different lens to view grizzly bears.
I want to tap into your park ranger background and go into a very modern story. So hopefully in the future, we'll see something like this where a lady went outside and found 100 raccoons just hanging outside her house. This is where you go back to like being mindful about leaving your garbage out and food out, because you might attract the wrong animals.
Correct. Yeah. Securing your garbage, your food, but also things you might not normally think about. So like in bear country, you also want to secure your bird feeder and your compost. And if you have any beehives, just because bears, they're always looking for that Thanksgiving meal, and they always want the most calories for the least amount of effort. So if they can just bust into your bird feeder or get into your trash, that's what they're going to do over, searching for their natural food sources, which takes up more energy.
These animals are huge. You go out there, and what are one of the larger ones that you've encountered personally?
Yes, those coastal Alaskan brown bears. And just for listeners, brown bears and grizzlies are the same species, Ursus Arctos. But I spent a few days at McNeil River State Game Sanctuary, which is on the Alaskan Peninsula, about 250 miles south of Anchorage. And the bears there have never been hunted. They've never received human food or garbage. They've never even been collared for research. So humans are just like this anonymous part of the landscape. And there, I encountered a 1,200-pound brown bear named Chops, who was the most dominant bear in the sanctuary that summer. And, these bears will just walk right past you, even just a few feet away, and they just hardly even look at you. They're just going about, feeding on the sedge or, trying to fish for salmon. So it's really amazing to be that close to these wild animals. And the bears there are a lot different than the bears in the lower 48, whereas in Yellowstone and Grand Teton, the bears are often food stressed and displaced. So they're a lot edgier than those well-fed coastal brown bears up there in Alaska.
Why is that? Why are the bears in the lower 48 food stressed compared to the others? Is there a lack of resources or lack of, vegetation?
Yeah, great question. The unfortunate thing here is the grizzlies in the lower 48, they reside on sort of these ecosystem islands. Habitats like Glacier and Yellowstone aren't connected. And they're also displaced by millions of tourists that come through Yellowstone, I think around 4 million each year. So they're a little on edge. They're a little displaced. The corridors connecting these ecosystems aren't really connected, so there's that lack of genetic diversity. And, up there in Alaska, they'll have 5 runs of salmon up the rivers. So the bears up there, I kind of equate to like a portly man sitting on his couch with a remote control and a fridge right next to him. They're just a lot more laid back and mellow than the bears here in the lower 48.
Oh, thank you for making me feel guilty for visiting Yellowstone.
Oh, no, you're fine. We encourage visitors because I think people want to protect what they love, and we love to have folks visit. We just want to make sure you do it safely and keep that 100 yards between yourself and the bear.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you continued success, especially with this new book, the Grizzly Whisperer himself, Kevin.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
You too.